I'd like to just draw attention to two very fundamental principles that really underlie this discussion. And one is that faith, as a word that occurs in almost all the religions. What does that mean? Well, in the Snowmass Conference, which is a meeting of many different traditions that took place over many years, and we tried to agree on certain principles, and one of those agreements is that faith precedes belief systems. That means that faith is the consent or surrender to the divine reality or to the ultimate reality or whatever its name is in the different religions before it's broken down into different belief systems which are bound to be influenced by the cultural conditioning of the person or the reformers who worked on that religion. So faith is when it becomes contemplative, begins to perceive the oneness behind all the religions before the experience of God was broken down into various belief systems. You have to have some belief systems because we're human as a starting point, and as I was trying to say, the faculties have to be organized around the faith system or the mythos and the ethos as a stepping stone or a conveyor belt to take us to a further level of relating to this mystery, which is more direct, which doesn't reject our former religious practices, but has a certain freedom towards them so that they're not absolutized. And so the only absolute becomes the absolute. And on the other end of the spectrum is the equally important issue of the separate self-sense. That is the I am that Ken was speaking about, which begins to emerge in very early childhood and then becomes fully reflective and self-conscious around adolescence and so on. And this is the basic source of every human problem, wouldn't you say? It's the source of certainly every sin in the sense of missing the mark, because it's the separate self-sense that opposes reality and the truth, and which creates our own self and ultimately our own hell if the self we're developing goes to the extremes of selfishness, as our own experience and those of many others realize is quite possible. So,
and that's I amness is a relative contracted self-sense, not absolute I amness. So he's talking about the separate self now in that sense.
Right. So at one hand you have the basic oneness of everything that is in its source, and the basic issue of separating ourselves from that oneness, which then means we're separating ourselves from our true self and from everybody else and from the cosmos in varying degrees in which we sin, and the meaning being miss the mark. To miss the mark is to fail to recognize the truth of the situation. And so the separate self-sense is what all the religions are trying to cure, as far as I can see, and all the consequences of that development, which psychologically speaking have been researched in our time, and such things as the private psychological unconscious, the personal unconscious, the collective unconscious, this whole world of motivation that we're not aware of is the fruit of the development of the separate self-sense into energy centers, like the first three chakras in the Hindu scheme of things, which are trying to find happiness in the wrong place. We're designed for happiness, so you can't choose anything else. Even to choose evil is in the hope of finding happiness somehow there. Or even to kill yourself is the hope of getting away from pain that's intolerable. So happiness is confused with the gratification of the instinctual instincts of the child. Security, power control, affection, esteem, and approval. And these grow into the false self and the ego. And so you come to adulthood with this baggage of possessive attitudes towards yourself and the world and other people that can't possibly work in an adult life. But unfortunately, you have to live with 6 billion other people who have the same problem. So it's no wonder there's social problems, because unless this radical problem is addressed, societies which are made up of a bunch of false selves is not going to do too well. And that's why to take a determination not to contribute to the messiness of the world by adding our own false self projects to it is one of the greatest gifts you could give to humanity. And if enough people do this, then society will be transformed. And without it, I don't think it can be. That's why religion, whatever its faults are, and they're numerous, is crucial, because it's the only path, at least foreseeable path, that leads most people to the experience of God. Now, other things can, like nature and wonderful service of others, conjugal love, art in some degree. But the holistic and concentrative way that religion addresses the human problem are unmatched. But they also have to be gradually transcended, not by rejection, but by taking the steps in which we relate to God more and more maturely as we grow as human beings into adulthood. And love is certainly very crucial in motivating us to do so. And I suppose that's why the first commandment in the Judeo-Christian scheme of things is to love the Lord your God with your whole mind, with your whole heart, with your whole soul, and with all your strength. It's impossible to do without contemplative prayer and the insight that brings.